everyone. This is a message kind of a little different than the other ones I've done because we're going to focus in this video on actually completing the assignment, the team assignment for this week. So you're going to be doing a SWOT and a report on that SWOT as a team, and that's what you're going to submit. So you need to go to the actual SWOT assignment listed under assignments when you've watched this or as you watch this. So it may be something you want to open right now. So the learning objective map for this particular assignment is, one, you're going to define the target market and the niche market. And the thing about this that is sometimes a little bit different, we haven't talked a lot about market analysis. So I'm going to give you some tips and tricks here in a minute. We're going to list the drivers of change associated with pharmacy and healthcare. It's one of the things you're going to accomplish and complete a SWOT. So this will be practice for you on how to do a SWOT. So one of the tips I'm going to give you to start with is this would be a good project. You'll see that I gave you a team discussion board. So you can post messages back and forth in there. You can also post a message in there that tells me you're having your primary conversation in a verbal format. But regardless of which of those two you choose, the other thing I would recommend is that you use Google Docs, because that will allow you as a team to start one document, to get into that document together, and you can write and see and actually be writing at the same time, and you'll see who's writing in that. So I gave you a link out to Google Docs that also gives you information on how you can use it. So that would be something that will be very useful for you as we move through and forward through the rest of the semester, okay? So for this particular set of instructions, what you will see is there's instructions with headings. Add those headings in your document. Those headings need to be there. I need to see each of those areas addressed, okay? 2, you'll see down at the bottom, it says samples of what would be in each section. I gave you a paragraph about in each of these areas. That's not all you have to write, but it gives you a sample of kind of my expectations of what the writing would look like. This is focused on something you may not focus on, so it's not necessarily helpful in that way, but it gives you some kind of useful tool in terms of expectations of the writing. You will also see down at the bottom, that's actually a table. It's a SWOT table. So you're going to set one of those up, and then I want you to be able to kind of address, and you'll see how you need to bold each strength and then give me an explanation about it. And the weaknesses, you'll bold what you're labeling it, then give me an explanation, and then you'll see that it says address and it's in bold. How are you going to address that? How are you going to minimize or eliminate that weakness? So think about that. That's part of what you're doing and what you'll see in the instructions. Okay, so for each area, I want you to address what's driving the change. You're going to choose a change initiative, a service you want to add, create in a pharmacy. You may want to do something based on what you think's needed in pharmacy due to the current situation we see. Whatever it is, you choose as a team what this is going to be focused on. You are going to, while you're writing, define that actual service. So what service are you going to be adding to your pharmacy? This is a change. Adding a service requires a lot of change. You're going to sell me on the fact that this service is needed and that there's a reason for doing it. So you're going to address what's driving the change and the addition of that service, and look at the reasoning and support for that service. So this is where some research is going to have to be done. You need to look at selling me on the service need, then service features and the resources needed. You can add tables or lists here, whatever you think is going to be most relevant or useful. Objectives of the service. What are you trying to actually do? What outcomes do you want? You're going to be putting those in there. So that's define the service. Then you're going to be doing the market analysis. So the market analysis, you'll see I've added a video on creating a target market, differentiating who that is. So you're going to have to decide what pharmacy you're doing this in and where it's located. It could be Weatherford, it could be Oklahoma City, it could be Tulsa, it could be Dallas, it could be Fort Worth, it could be New York City. You make the choice, right? And I've given you a link to the Census Bureau, and you can use the city, the county, the zip code, and put it in there and get information about that particular community. Median income, the ethnic breakdown of the community, those types of things. This is where you're going to start looking at how you create that market and how you go, this exists here. So if you're trying to create a service that focuses on the elderly, what's the demographic breakdown of that community? Do you have that population there to service as a market niche? All right. You can also go to the state health department. And in the state health department, there are all sorts of statistics and information about the health of those communities, the rate of asthma, diabetes. You can get information like that that really can tell you what kind of population health issues might exist in the community. That can also spur information in terms of what kind of service would be viable there. Right. So this is about really deciding who you're trying to reach. You're looking at these things. You've got to consider who needs what I have. Are those people here where I can reach them? How do they need to be reached? It gives you a lot of information when you start to really understand who your demographic is and who that target market and that niche is you plan on serving. So this is where you define that and define it clearly. Then you're going to conduct the SWOT analysis, and I've given you the factors you need to cover, things you need to think about for the internal and external. And then you're going to add those into the table. Now, when you use facts, give me a citation. You can use AMA for this, which should give you the EndNote set up so that when when you're doing this and you're actually setting it up and you're giving me the citation, it'll add a little number beside the area in the SWOT, and then I can go look at where you got it from at the EndNote. This is about making sure that you're populating your SWOT with real information and not just, well, I think. I want to see that it actually has some viable information behind it. Now, where that's not going to be possible is in the internal. So in the internal components, you can model it over a pharmacy you've worked in and the strengths and weaknesses you saw in that pharmacy. That will be one of the best ways to do that. You can kind of create a pharmacy in your head based on what your team's experiences have been, and then that can feed into the internal component of your SWOT. So some of that is going to be, you're not going to be able to give me evidence in that area. I understand that and I'm fine with it. The external, I want some evidence supplied for these things. And then at the very end, you're going to give me a recommendation. Based on this, is this service viable? Do you recommend we actually move forward with it? And what would be the next step you would ask me to take as an administrator, as an owner, to get this service started? Now, this does not need to be incredibly long because we're spending our week on it. So defining your service, 1 page. Market analysis, 1 page. The SWOT, you're going to put it in a table format. Depending on what you have in there, that table may be on 1 page. You may have the internal on 1 page, the external on the other page. That is fine. But it is fine. The SWOT can be totally in a table. And then the recommendation, 1 page. So, we're really talking here 4 to 5 pages long, and then you'll have your reference list. Not incredibly long for teams of anywhere from 3 to 6 people. This is something, though, you need to start thinking about early in the week. So here's how I would recommend you really kind of sit down and pace yourself for the week, right? So early in the week, you need to make sure that your team gets together probably on Monday when we would normally have class. Use the group discussion forum, get on the phone, use the freeconferencecall.com, set yourselves up to have a conversation the first day of the week. And everybody should be free during the time that we would have normally had class. Now I say should because some people may have children at home with them. You need to talk to each other and just make sure it's still viable for everybody to do that. But that would be my recommendation. Then set the pace for the rest of the week. Any discussion you need to have really needs to be done by Friday. And then the assignment's due by Sunday. If you can get it done by Friday so you don't have to carry anything into the weekend, I think that would be great for all of you to do. So that means before you start working on this together, that the material that I've said you need to read, you read, and that the additional resources you look at, if there are any, and that you set aside some time to watch the videos, which they're not overly long, but you add them up, they're probably going to add up to about a 50-minute class period. You're going to need to do all of that and read what I've asked you to read so that you're prepared with your team to actually work on this. If you don't take those steps and read the instructions for this assignment, then you are not going to get as far as you need to get. So if you can have everybody do those items before, really even by Tuesday, so you can have a meeting on Wednesday and work for the 50 minutes we would normally be in class on these documents, split up who's going to work on what parts of it early in the week, you'll be much further along. Ultimately, this is up to you and your team to turn out a good product, but just keep in mind that it's really going to require that you plan early and work smart. Now, the other thing to pay attention to is that you'll notice at the bottom of this assignment, there is a rubric associated with this. And I've given you an example or just, told you what excellent work in each of these categories would include, and then how many points total are associated with that category. So when I grade, that's what I'm going to be using and how I'm going to be scoring the total points. If you have questions, let me know. Post your comment or your questions in the questions and concerns forum so that I can answer them and everybody can see them. And have some fun with this. Choose a service you're really interested in, possibly adding to your professional life and you've seen that you think is needed in a pharmacy, and explore that through this assignment, because that will do the most good for you professionally, and it will really give you some hands-on with the tool itself. Until next time, stay safe.